Well, let's see if this is going to work. Looks like it's working. I'll see if I get any comments here, kind of make me feel better about the fact it's working or not. Looks like it's working. Anyway, yeah, got a little bit of work to do in the shop. I tell you what, be careful what you wish for, right? I was hoping to have some belts to work on, and recently I had that show, and I had a gentleman that, so far he's either bought or purchased 7 belts, one guy. I guess he figured that maybe it was time to get stuff ahead of time. He said most of them were for gifts. I know at least 4 of them are gifts for himself, but anyway. And then behind that, I don't know if you saw the video or not, but my brother's hiking the Appalachian Trail, and he's doing it as a fundraiser for Tunnel to Towers organization, and I had put out a video outlaying the fact that I would donate the proceeds for the belts if anyone bought a belt based off of that video. So I've got these 4 belts I'll have finished today. And then I've got, I think, 7 more belts to make over there. So that'll keep me busy. I'm trying to get them all produced as quickly as possible. Usually I have most of my orders done in usually like a week. So, but I thought I would work on some of these this morning while we fill in and see if we get any questions. And let's see, I see some notes there. I see that HR manager says, sees you there. You know what, I'm not a fan of that angle. Let me bring this down a little bit here. It looks like you're looking at the top of my hat. Yeah, I'm back on the screen. Okay, so yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks since the last time we had a live stream. I've gone through quite a few different things. I had the comparison leather video last week, and I really like how those projects turned out, regardless of which leather it was. And I want to say, I'm not trying to change anyone's opinion about the leather they like, not at all. But I just want people to see that there is a difference in them. And the difference on the Herman Oak as opposed to the MTL leather, it's significant. There's no doubt in the color tone, if that's important to you. Let me grab those again here. So these are the 2 that had no dye added to them. It's the burnish with an oil and the clear finish. And I had a couple of people ask about the difference in the color if it was aged. I set this out in the sun for about an hour yesterday to give it a little bit of color tone there. So it definitely toned it up. You know, some may say they like that warm yellow better, and I do like the looks of that warm yellow. There's no doubt about that. But anyway, that's those there. And then I had, and one of the great things about having a YouTube channel is you, from time to time, get people that are trying to scam you. At least I'm pretty sure that's what was going on there. I had a gentleman reach out, had a picture of one of these that I posted on Facebook, and said he wanted one of those. And so I already had the red cut out. This is that Vicata leather. Vicata leather. I can't get that pronounced quite the strong enough on the hay side of things. But I saw this, and I already had it cut out. I was making one for my booth, but asked me to, if I had one, how much. I told him how much, and then as soon as I did that, then he's like, that's great. Let me send you a deposit on Venmo. And I sent back, and I'm like, you know, hey, no problem. I don't need a deposit. When I get it done, I'll send photos and, you know, to make sure that it's exactly the way you want. And I also, I encourage you, if you're shipping things, the one way I do it, and sometimes I overthink things, big surprise there. But what I'll usually do is when I get done with the project, and before I ship it, I make out the address label. I take a photo and I ship it to them saying, is this your address? And even with that, I actually had one time where the guy said yes, and then it came back because it was wrong. But anyway, he kept insisting several times, you know, like in the week before I got it completed, because I told him I was running about 2 weeks on it, and he multiple times is you know, send me your Venmo, you know, I want to get a deposit on that. I'm like, it's not going anywhere. I'm not going to sell it to anybody else. And then like a day later. So anyway, then he wanted my phone number and email. There are people out there that are looking to scam anybody out there. And so you got to be aware of that. And I'm not sure if it's a target because of being on YouTube or what the case is, but that's the deal there. I had a gentleman ask me to do a shout out to him. I'm not sure how to. I guess I can click on share anyway. I'm still figuring this YouTube thing out. I'm just happy today. It came up and it's horizontal. And anyway, it's a beautiful day here. Here in Phoenix, we've been up close to 100 the last couple of days. So I tell you what, my trailer over here is saying, put the stuff in there and head north. But we've got a little bit of time yet. We'll have some cooler weather. Anyway, I think it turned out beautiful. So I'll have it on my artisan table. I figured this would, if I have that on display in my booth, I think it draws attention. And I would encourage you that if you're doing any type of a booth, to have something that is visible to draw people in. Between this and my travel totes, I think it really helps to draw people in. So I'll set this out of the way. Sorry, a lot of pollen this year. So some of you probably saw my video this morning that I put out, and it was on this sheath here. And you're not going to hurt my feelings. Tell me what you think about the design on it. When I got it finished, I'm not real happy about this shape. I do say that one of the reasons why I like a pancake sheath is the comfort of wearing it around your waist. Like here's the belt line. So if you're in and out of a vehicle, you know, seated and standing, the bottom of the knife doesn't get in the way. Where if you dropped it this way, I think that's a cool classic look for a sheath. Let me slow down. I feel like I'm yelling at you. If it's the other way like this is a classic look. If you have the, well, I see a lot of times where the handle sticks like above the belt line. And to me, especially with my love handles there, that's a little bit uncomfortable with this digging into your side. If you have it lower than that, then if you're trying to get in and out of a vehicle, you're having to move this out of the way at times as a result of that. So let me look and see if I see any comments here. Hey, Frank, I see you down there, South Mississippi. Do you ever run any snapping turtles down there? You know, when I was growing up, we had snapping turtles all around us there in central Indiana, the ponds and different places like that. And I've seen some pretty good sized ones, but none as big as what I was doing a little research on the snapping turtles, up to 60 pounds. That's a pretty good sized snapping turtle. I'll bet you that, that there are definitely some big turtles out there that maybe people haven't even seen the size of them. But the design, I feel like it should come more to a point. And I realized afterwards, I really made, to me, a mistake on here. I had this set the intention is for it to be at an angle like this. And obviously, it takes a wider, this is an 1.25 inch belt. It takes a wider hole than the 1.25 inch slot to put one through there when it's at that angle. I'm looking for my tape measure here. Let me grab it. And so I was doing some of that math on paper, and so for an 1.25 inch, I really need a 2 1/8 inch slot for an 1.25 inch. So, you know, by the time you get another 1/4 inch on there, you know, that would be more like down to here. So it really should have been more like 2.5, and I'm just a shade over 3. And I just think if I had, well, if you watch the video of me making it, I get all of this work done in here and I leave the tabs open, and then I create the slots. What I should have done is I should have created the top slot on both sides, and then just the 2-inch one, and then, you know, put a belt through and see how much more space I need in there. But live and learn. That's, you know, one of the things, and I think I said in the video, but I've made, I don't know, a dozen or 18 knife sheaths, and I don't do them frequently enough to where I remember the mistakes and errors, and I do try to take notes and review those, try to. But if I think I would have liked this knife sheath better had I made a smaller hole, because I would have come off of here and made more of a, I don't know, I just didn't like that shape so much. But anyway, not looking for sympathy. I think it's good to look at your project and have a critical eye, as long as it doesn't discourage you from making more of the sheaths. So what do you think of that, that turtle leather? I think the, I don't know if you can see it there very well or not, but the texture of it's just really cool. And I did brown because I wanted the black to stand out. I think I probably should have done maybe a lighter brown than that. That's my favorite brown. That's the what I call dark mahogany. It's a mixture of mahogany and dark brown pro dye. So we'll move on from that. But throw questions in if you've got any questions on there. Yeah, so, you know, over the last couple of weeks, I've had some questions. Some was related around that leather, but as I was saying, my intention is not to try to, you know, take someone that is sold on a specific leather and make them change their mind. But I wanted to, I guess, I think a lot of times when people are standing in the store and they're looking at a hide that's maybe twice as expensive as the other one, and then trying to figure out which one should I use, and if I make it, what's the difference? So that was my intention there. And the other thing about like the snapping turtle leather there, the when I've looked at exotic leathers at the Prescott Leather Show, there's I think it's Vaughn Gators, and they always have a booth there, and they've got really some. They really have some beautiful hides, and I've looked at some of, well, the big ones are expensive. He had one there 2 years ago, it was $2,000, and that's a lot of change to put on one. But when I look at it, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but it seems like when you're, well, it'd be like the tail. Let me grab one of these tails. To me, on this tail, there's only one place. If you want these, and they're not scales, I can't remember now what they call those bumps on a snapping turtle, but there's only one spot there, right? If I cut off down here and use that on something, I suppose I could use this, but it seems awkward that you don't have that running all together. So with that said, the thing I like about the shoulders on the snapping turtle is that I think you can use all of these areas here without, you know, ruining the piece itself on there. So anyway, let me look here real quick. Oh, someone asked, how easy is it to access the handle? So when I'm wearing it, it's curved like this on my body, and I think it's pretty easy to grab hold of that handle and pull that out of there. It does have a hole through here if you want to put a loop on there, which a lot of people like a loop when they're using the knife to put your hand through there so that you can have better control of the knife. But I think it's easy enough to get a hold of that. And I've been thinking about a way to incorporate. So if I put a leather thong on here that's say 6 or 8 inches long, you could, if you're worried about it being secure, I think it's pretty secure. The fitting in here is pretty tight. I mean, you know, you can shake it out of there, but I'm not going to be doing, or I hope the person's doing, it's probably not doing cartwheels. But I thought about putting a leather thong on there that you could then tuck behind the belt, you know, to give it a little bit more secure. So yeah, that is one thing to keep in mind because of that. And I think if I had thought further ahead on making these loops here, that this one here would come up further and this one would probably come down a little further and have less leather there as well. Yeah. So I don't know if there's any other questions. Let me look here. I have run lines, but not lately. Milo, I'm not sure what you're saying there. I think you're talking to somebody else in the stream there. But anyway, I just think it's a beautiful leather. I really want to dig into it and explore with that. I have some pretty cool ideas on how to use the tails. I've been wanting to make like a messenger bag, somewhat narrow, and I think that would really make a cool front flap to have that tail section, especially, I know I keep going off camera here, but especially this, that purple. I can just see that on a flap of a messenger bag down the front of say a black flap. I just think the color is just absolutely amazing. And I was talking with the lady that has been my main point of contact, and I said, are there any interesting facts about, you know, tanning the snapping turtle leather? And she sent back, I don't know if it's interesting or not, but she has said the smell of that when they're working on it is probably the most difficult thing to deal with for people, is the smell. But just look at that texture. And Dean asked earlier in the comments about the leather, if they gave that to me for free, and they did. You know, obviously they see value in getting it in front of craftspeople that are using it in different areas. I think it's a pretty popular leather on some of the exotic boots, and I've seen pictures of those. It's really some really pretty cool things there. But anyway, I'll move on yet again from here. Let's see here. What are you saying, Dean? You don't have to buy the best, but what is the best is subjective, I think is where you're going with that. You know, out of that test, I'll say, out of that test, I'll be buying more Herman oak leather than I've bought in the past. I have bought Herman oak leather in the past. I've bought a few not raw hides, but complete hides. So sometimes there's some big variation from one side to the other to strip down, and I bought it because I was making some products that I needed some heavy-duty leather for fastening and such. So, and I've used through that, and that Herman oak side that I kept those panels out of, I've used over half that side already, and I made 3 belts out of it, and one of them was left raw, the rest I dyed. But part of that was that tooling hide had some black spots on it. And I asked Pat at Montana Leather, you know, is that normal for that grade of hide? And he said it is. And so I had some black belts that I was making, so I stripped that and then I dyed it black, which helped to mask those spots. And I think, you know, the one thing that I've got going for me, as opposed to maybe a hobbyist that is, you know, making some specific Christmas gifts for family members, is they maybe have an exact item that they're needing to make, and they're looking for leather for that item. And when I'm making products, I'm able to roll out a hide, and if I don't like the way it looks because of placement of a brand or whatever, then I have another hide that I can roll out. Matter of fact, I've got plenty of hides right now that I can roll out. And yeah, so I think, you know, it's easier for some people to use up hides that they order and, you know, maybe don't come the exact way they wanted. I had someone asking me about the SB foot leather from Montana Leather, and I don't know. I should have kept track. I could probably go back through my invoices and see how many I've bought, but I've probably bought at least 20 sides in the last 4 years. And that may be conservative because I think I've got probably 7 or 8 back there. But my point is, they were asking, you know, how they look. And occasionally I get one that's not a beautiful hide. Most of the time it's been when I've purchased, say, an odd lot where you don't know the color or anything. You're just getting the next hide on the stack. And I don't know if sometimes those odd lot ones are have been picked over in the shop for a period of time, and they throw them over there and they sell them at a discount. You get what you get. But out of all those hides, I had one that was pretty ugly, and I had one other one that was pretty beat up. I was able to utilize both of them. But if you had ordered it in, say you ordered a side in just to make a tote, and that's the only side you had, and you got it, you'd be disappointed in getting it that way. So I think, the value of being able to go to a store and pick out what you want, I think, is really important there. The name of your brown mahogany dye. Oh, RL Tan. Well, it's more brown. So maybe RL Brown, anyway. So yeah, I think that it really can kind of depend there on what you're getting. If I'm buying 4 or 5 sides of that SB foot leather and I'm making totes out of it, most of them, I think I said before, I can usually average 2 out of each hide. Every once in a while I get a hide because of its shape or a hole or something where I can't. But if I have multiple of that same one, then I cut smaller parts out of that part, and then I can focus on the others, for that. And then I think I said, those totes I usually sell for somewhere in the $200 range. And if I can get 2 out of there, those hides, most of them I've paid, $55 or less, a lot of them $50. And so $25 for the leather, and another, I don't put a bunch of hardware in there, but say another $4 or $5 for hardware. So, the opportunity there is good. Rick, scroll back to my question. Just join. Does it make a difference, the design, whether you wear it? Yes, that is a right-handed sheath. Absolutely. And, partially, I don't have a problem with creating it that way, but especially since it's got your, visual pocket there, it's going to, and I think I edited it out because in the beginning I was talking about the, how I created the pattern, and I may pull that out and make its own video, but I thought I was going to lose you in there. I looked at it and I had like 25 minutes of talking about how I created the pattern. But the reason why I like this type of pancake sheath with the handle forward like that is that even with my slim physique, when I'm wearing it on the side, I can reach around with my left hand and grab the knife and or put it back. So I can grab it from this side or from the left side. And if it's like this, I've had that before, many years ago when I'm trying to reach around and remove the knife from the far side, and it can become a challenge. Typically, the way I wear these, because I don't want them to slide around like the one I'm wearing here. I put the belt through the first slot, then I go through the belt loop on the jeans, and then back through here, and that holds it kind of in one spot there. And that's kind of the way I like that, and that's the way I designed this. My point of saying that is you could obviously wear it further around, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I like it right on my hip there. And I had a gentleman that I made a sheath for in Colorado, and I made a video on it, but it's been 2 years ago or so. And I asked him how he liked it, and he goes, well, it kind of digs into my gut. And I'm like, I'm like, really? I said, are you wearing it on your right hip? He goes, it needs to go forward to that because of the design there. And I'm like, no. And I explained it when I dropped it off, but there's a lot going on there. And he actually, the day that I dropped it off, he ended up giving me another knife and having me make another one. But he said it worked better because then he shifted it. And he's left hand because he's typically got an iron on his right side, and he wanted a left hand draw that he could reach also from the off hand, which would be the right hand in this case. So anyway, thanks, Rick. That was a good question. Am I going to any other leather shows this year? That's a really good question. Last year when I went to Pendleton and I returned from there, I said I probably wouldn't go back this year because it's such a hike up there. I prefer to drive because well, maybe this would work in my advantage. If I flew up, maybe I wouldn't be so tempted to gather up another armload of leather and bring home. But I typically like to drive because I'm able to bring home my purchases easier. I don't know that I could carry on, a half a dozen sides of leather. Maybe I'll wait to make the decision on Pendleton until we get closer to see what condition I'm in for leather supplies, and then my mindset of going to Pendleton. But Pendleton was good. It was a little bit of a challenge for me this year. We had some personal stuff come up while I was at the show, so that affected getting out of there and getting home. And so there's two other shows, well, three. I would consider going to the Waco one, or I'm sorry, the one in Amarillo. The one in Waco, I was really kind of surprised at how small it was. Small in the number of suppliers or vendors there. It was really pretty small. There's some other advantages to going to the one in Texas. One is I've got family down that way, and I can make more of a trip out of it with that. There's also quite a few suppliers in that area. A couple that I've not made it into their shop. One is Traditions, and I know it's up in Oklahoma, but if I'm within a couple hour drive, to me it's like next door. Traditions, I've never been in their shop. That would be an interesting one to get to, and I might be able to pick that shop up, crossing country one day. And then you've got Makers is there, and Frog Jelly. I never did make it into their shop, and Tandy's big store is there as well. Now, I left out the obvious one, and that's Sheridan. And part of the challenge is I've got some other personal commitments that really start putting constraints on my time frame there. It's basically about the time that I relocate from Arizona to Colorado that I would be there like a week and then have to drive to Wyoming for that. And that's a long drive. I mean, Colorado, Wyoming, you think it's like right there, but to get there is probably, it's every bit of a 10-hour drive to get there. Anyway, so I guess that answers the questions in a long way around there. Dean says, for belts, I buy Herman Oak belt bends, cut to the width. Yeah, I do like the idea of the bends. But let me ask you, Dean, when I've looked at that, it looks like for the bend, I'm paying the same as I would for that same Herman Oak as a complete side, and then I pick up the shoulder and the belly for sheaths and smaller projects. I will say at times it becomes a little bit of a pain having those parts and pieces, because I don't want to waste things, so I have to come up with projects for it. But the one example, some of these journal covers, and I've made some smaller ones as well. And so anyway, I'm able to utilize some of that leather for there. But how's that price the same way? I think it's, to me, it looks like what they charge for the bend is still the same price as a side, but you pick up the shoulder and the belly. Jonas, I'm glad to see you on there. I hope you're doing well. And I know this isn't your best time to have a video. It must be getting late evening there in Sweden. Hey, Knowles, how are you doing? I see Knowles Garden Tractor and Firewoods there. He's on Prince Edward Island. But anyway, I'm just wondering if, even if I don't get a ton out of it there, you never know. And I did that video back a ways where I was making coasters. And obviously, if I made coasters out of every belly and shoulder I had, I can't get rid of that many coasters. But I did the math on it, and on the hide that I bought, the belly and the shoulder that I had cut off and left the what would be a bend for my belts, I created enough coasters that would pay for the complete hide, which would make the belt leather for free. But I've made the coasters. I haven't sold them all, but I have sold a few. So, I mean, that's one thing I try to keep in mind, is trying to make the best use of, the leather as I get it. I wanted to show a couple other projects here, and one of them's coming up, but I had a gentleman reach out to me, and he wanted, let me get around here. He wanted a case for a Zippo lighter here, And a little bit of a spoiler alert, but you guys are come in here and watch, so we get to see maybe some other things. This was the leather work that I made for it. And the idea, it's a holster, and then you can hook the bottom of it with your finger and push it out there to get a hold of it. So that's the leather I created, and I was to the point where I would, rough up and glue this all together, do my stitching. I'd have to put the loop on the back first. But that was my design for that. And he saw the basket weave. And I don't know if he's on here today or not. I didn't look to see if you're on there or not, but hope you don't mind me sharing your commission project. But I got to this point, and in the past, I have went out and purchased or created a piece of wood in the size of what I'm making, whether it was a sheath knife or whatever. But I bought this Zippo lighter. Partially, my dad used to carry one. I don't personally have a need for a Zippo lighter unless it's a fire in the fireplace. But I'm glad I did, because I would have shipped something that would look beautiful, but it had a flaw in it that I didn't realize until I was playing with it. But when you push this up here, and it needs to be not tight, but snug to where it doesn't fall out. Now when you go to remove it, I'm pulling on this hinge point here. And I know the Zippo lighters are made well, but I was really concerned about the result of that. So I'll give you just a quick view of what I ended up with. Was this. And so it's not nearly as tight because it's got a flap on it, and you have more of it exposed. And then the last thing I did is I made it out of soft enough leather where you can give it a little bit of a push and get it up out of there. But anyway, that's a video that's coming up here. And I bring that up because I really do appreciate people that come up with, commission items, obviously, but even just ideas of what to make. If you've got ideas of what to make, if you'd put that in there, that would be, totally awesome. Let's see if I've got anything here. Thanks there, Rick. I appreciate that. I do think it turned out really beautiful. I could make another one, and I would fine tune it a little bit from there. There's some things in there that I would do a little bit different. And tooling that thinner leather is good practice because, I like to have, I usually kind of probably use a little bit of a heavy hand when I'm tooling. And I think it's better for me to have something thicker. I was creating a design. It was actually for a project for Aaron Heiser's class on the leather that he sent me. And I'm so intent on following my design, and I almost cut completely through it in 2 or 3 places. I had to cut another piece and start over again there. So I probably work better with that, and that's I'm sure a touch that I would get used to, if I was tooling more. And I really want to tool more. I know if you want to tool more, then tool more. But obviously I have to come up with projects, and I really want to make tooled belts. But my small design work is the area I probably need to practice the most with. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to get more into that. Sometimes I get caught up a lot on trying to come up with a project that I think you guys would find interesting for a Saturday video. And I've had people before in the comments like, stop worrying about, I must jump in here real quick. Man, I only got 2 thumbs up. Man, a couple of thumbs up would be great there. I like the projects, the ideas you guys come up with there. And I've had people say, hey, don't worry so much about, having a video out every Saturday with a new project. But it's kind of a path I started. And, the HR department in my family, and we should listen to our HR departments, that's for sure. That's your schedule. No one set that schedule but you. And so I probably need to focus on, changing that a little bit there. Let's see here. Design a belt. In the past, remove all the lighter in an angle like pancake sheath is easier. Oh, you're saying tip it like forward? Is that what you're saying, Bowmaker? Yeah, I mean, I guess that would work as well. And I see a lot of people making, especially different parts of the country where it's more popular, a can to hold or a holster to hold snuff and that type of thing. And that, that's a predictable shape. That was the other thing is I asked the person that was for, is that, is there one size of a Zippo lighter? My dad had a Zippo lighter. That's one reason why I didn't mind buying it is, I set some things around here to remember mom and dad by, but he wore that Zippo lighter so much that he completely wore the nickel plate off of it. It was down to the brass because they start off as brass. And the inside of it that you pull out to change the strike in it and to fill it, you fill it from the bottom after you pull it out. That's metal. That's why the magnet works on there. Not really correct, Robert. Single bends are 190 and a side is 340. I'll take another look at it because I'm assuming that when you're buying those bends, you're buying an A grade that has like zero flaws in that. Yeah, now you got me rethinking my Zippo lighter case there. Well, the gentleman saw it and likes it there. I guess I was afraid if you knocked the flap open of the Zippo coming out of there, thanks. No, I mean that in sincerity. I appreciate when people put comments in there. There's been a couple comments I'm like, oh shoot, really? I mean, that was kind of harsh. But really, for the most part, I've learned more from my viewers than they've learned from me. Things that they like to see, different ways of looking at things, different ways of explaining things, and I really appreciate the feedback there. But yeah, this gentleman here, I'll go back to this guy for a minute, but he was in my booth that I had at the car show. I guess it's been 2 weeks ago today. I was at that car show, and he picked out one of my ranch hand belts in black, and I tried to get him to look at some of the pretty belts, and he's like, oh, I'm a plain belt kind of guy. And I said, okay, that's not a problem. And so, he bought the ranch hand belt in black, which is just it's a matte finish, just plain black belt. And then a couple hours later, or the next day, I can't remember which one it was, he's like, I'm wondering if you have that in brown. I'm like, absolutely. I said, I have 4 different browns in that ranch hand belt. And he's like, well, send me some pictures. I said, well, we're going to have to meet if you want to see them. I said, I'll just bring, the belts and you can see which one you like, instead of trying to pick it from a photo. And then he asked something about a dress belt. So I went through my collection, picked every 38 out. That was his size, every 38-inch belt out. And he started looking at them, and he saw that one, and it's even prettier when you get it out into the out in the daylight there. But it's really pretty with a pair of jeans. I've had people go, I don't know about a blue belt, but with jeans, it's just really a striking belt. I need to make one for myself. Anyway, he while he was there, he picked out a brown one, and then he saw I had a mahogany belt in 1 inch that he saw and he picked. And then he was talking about getting a belt for his son-in-law. And then he ordered another belt for himself. So he ordered these 2 1-inch black belts. And then on the way out, I showed his wife. I said, isn't that a beautiful belt? We were in the parking lot then. And she's like, don't sell that. Birthday or something's coming up. And then it was just a couple of days later, he reached out and he goes, I want that. I had it 1.5 inches. He says, I want that in 1 1/4 inches. So I made him one 1 1/4 inches. And then a couple of days later, he asked for this one here for his grandson. So hopefully he gets excited when he gets to Christmas. See where it goes from there. Milo, I've looked at, so Milo asked if I've ever used a double shoulder for belts. So I've, every time I've been into a store and seen double shoulders, it's been Tandy. And, well, let me back up. So online, I've seen double shoulders, and they talk about the width of the leather over the shoulders. Because I think that would make a decent hide over the shoulders this direction, because there's not much stretch this way. The stretch, most of it's this way around the shoulders, not this direction. But every time that I've been in, I know people don't like to hear the word Tandy, and looked at them, the shoulders are plenty big side to side. Well, I should say plenty big. They're in the 48-inch range. And then the width of them is small. And I don't mean it's like this, it's smaller because you've got this shoulder and then like a V-notch around the neck and then this shoulder. And I just can't see getting enough straps out of there. On Weaver's site, I see where they have a double shoulder and they talk about, you know, the average measurement that way. And maybe they do a better selection of knowing people want to use it that direction. What I would really like to find, and if you look under cuts of leather, I'm scanning down here to see if I've got any comments there. See you, Rick. I appreciate you stopping in and saying hi. What I'd like to find, I've seen, you know, the bend of a hide starts at the rear rump and comes forward and stops before the shoulder. And then it's, I don't know, Dean, would you type in there how oft or how wide your bend usually is? Is it like 20 inches or 18 inches? But I've seen where you can buy a double bend. I've seen one time in a store. It's a huge piece of leather because it's both sides of the cow. Yeah, both sides of the cow. So it's a double bend. And the idea of that would be, in my mind, would be to cut it not lengthways of the hide, but across the hide this way, because I think you'd get even less stretch there. I really don't think that, I appreciate it. You like that blue belt there, Bo? I don't seem to have that much of a problem with stretching the belts. And I judge that off a couple of ways. One, I'm pretty hard on a belt. I wear it while I'm working in the summer. I do work some construction as well. I mainly do that as my weight loss program. I can't go to the gym. And I tend to wear my belt probably tighter than I need to. It's just an old guy thing. But, you know, I've taken my belt off and measured it before to see, and, you know, I get very little stretch. And I think the reason why is because, you know, most of my belts, this one's 11 ounces. Most of my belts are between 10 and 12 ounces. If it's a bigger belt, then I typically always go to the 12 ounce side of that. And I just don't think I get a whole lot of stretch out of that. Dean, I see you said you had nothing bad to say about Tandy. I'm not saying that you did. I at times, I think the quality of the hardware is lower. And I've had maybe just a couple of, you know, leave a bad taste in your mouth. I made a purse and I put hardware on it that I bought from there. And I installed it in such a way, which I probably shouldn't have, that it wasn't easy to remove the hardware and reinstall it because of the way I had it sandwiched together on the backside. And with just me making sure everything fit and worked, the thing broke. And maybe someone stepped on it somewhere or something, but it broke. So, you know, that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And then just the weight of the hardware itself. And I know Buckle Guy, a large part of this is import. They say that I think 50% of what they sell is domestically made. I have a feeling none of that's in the Buckle area because they do specialty projects, and I think the specialty stuff they make here in the U.S. and then the everyday stuff comes out of China. But just the quality and the weight of them, I've been just extremely happy with those. And I use, unless I need a specialty buckle, the Laramie buckle I buy that from Tandy. That's the only place I found one like that. And if I could find a Laramie buckle set, something that looked like that was better made, then I'd like to get that. And the only place I've found that is if I'm looking at, you know, sterling silver, you know, stuff. And then the price is off the charts. There's nothing wrong with that because I'm finding that there are more people that are willing to pay for that than a person thinks. But anyway, it's just been my experience. It just seems like the hardware side on Tandy is just okay. And when I was talking last week on that leather, you know, economy versus, you know, higher priced leather, I think maybe that was a bad choice of words because I think people are comparing that MTL leather to like Tandy economy. And Tandy economy usually has a lot a lot of scars and scratches and holes and such. And then they have their Craftsman sides. And the MTL leather lines up more with the Craftsman sides, or maybe a little bit higher even from there. You get 16 to 18. So that would be like you're someplace in the 22 to 26 inch range, I guess is what I would say, on the side of a bend. Yeah, so 16 to 18. What do you say you're paying for those? Is it $200? Is that, I think, what you had in there, $200? So $200, and I can make 8 belts because I use 2 layers, and that's me again. I'm stuck with that. I guess I could get a 9-inch bend and then get a less expensive liner to put on the back side of that, so I don't double up that expense. But 8. So that's $16, I guess. Is that right? If I use 2 layers of it, 16, 8 into 200. Yeah. So my mind just not processing quick today. But anyway, let me see here. I did pick up a couple thumbs up. I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody that takes time to put comments in there. And it's not a prerequisite if you're here that you have to, get involved in the chat. But I think it does make it interesting for everybody. You're okay. The makers in Toronto. Cool. Yeah, leather. I like Landwirl and leather, and I've talked to him a couple of times about like SB foot leather and some of the imports and stuff. And he's there on price on those items as well. I'm like, are you able to sell it for X? And he's like, yeah, I can get there if that's where I need to be, type of thing. So obviously he'd like to pick that business up just same as anybody else. And then I've had quite a few questions. I want to put a question to you guys. I really like the Tiger Ritza thread, and I bought some thread from is it Maine Thread Company? I think that's the name of it. But anyway, they're out of New England, and I haven't found anything from them that's the same like braided thread like the Tiger Ritza. And I would rather buy everything that's U.S. made. And I don't know, I'm not going to get political here, but we may be headed that way more than we think to get more U.S. made. But I really like the Tiger Ritza. I have not broken thread yet with Tiger Ritza. And the one time what made me think of it was when I was at Landwirl, and I bought some of his thread, and his is the Maine Thread Company. And so I bought some, just trying to find some more things to buy from him there. And the first time, and maybe I'm using the wrong one, but the first time I used it, about the 5th time I went like that on a belt, I broke it. So obviously, if I'm breaking the thread doing that, I'm probably, pulling harder than I need to whenever I'm making doing my thread on a belt. And I've even ended up with a knot in there that's like tight enough you can't see what it is, and I'm like, it's either going to pop out of it or not, and pulled hard enough that I was afraid I was going to pull it through the belt before the knot popped loose, and I was able to continue on. But I use a lot of it. I just received 2 more rolls of thread, and I told myself a couple years ago to stop buying these smaller rolls of Tiger Ritza. The price has gone up and up and up on that. That's 50 meters for $10, and this here from the Buckle guy is 500 meters for, it was $41. I just received a roll of this color, the beige, and the cream, both of them just today. I had to order some buckles for this guy here. He wanted, the buckle I had was more rounded, and he wanted it square. And I said, well, if you don't mind waiting for it to come in, then I'll order it and get them in. 190, okay. Yes, Dean, you're right. The chat helps, because unless I have a bunch of topics that I'm trying to get across, and I really don't have a bunch today, but I do want to know, help me come up with some ideas. I guess I can do some Google searches on using that turtle leather. on some unique projects. I don't want to waste it, not use it on the right project. And not long ago, the wife and I were on a little tour of Arizona with one of my brothers, and we went into an antique store, and I picked up this strap cutter. I don't know if anybody's ever used one of these strap cutters like this or not. It holds utility knife blades there, and you can move the spacing a little bit. They've just got them set at an even space, and I like looking through antique stores. When we go through antique stores, we play the game of picking up something and going, "Do you know what that is?" I know what that is. And when I saw this, I'm like, "Do I really need that?" And then I saw the price was $5, and I'm like, "How can I not have it for $5? Even if I use it, one time, then it works out really good." So Thomas Johnson asked if the Sheridan shows are going. I've been told it's like. Everybody's got their own show they like, but I heard a lot of people say it's the best show that they put on. There's also the Don King Museum there, so you can see the leatherworks there. And then if you don't have enough reason to spend money, Barry King is located right there as well. And I've heard that the shows that they have are really good. If I make it there this year, it won't be for one of the shows. If I make it there, it'll probably be a quick dart up there and back. I do have kids that are in the Denver area, so it doesn't hurt to get there and see the kids, and then make an excuse to go up and go look at some leather and supplies there. So now I just have to find the right project to use that on. Yeah, I don't know. I think Dean is asking is lace cutter, fringe cutter. I think it's. I think that would be called a lace cutter, because to use it on fringe, I think. Well, I suppose you could use it on fringe. It would be hard though. You'd end up like a staggered start with that. So I think it's more of a lace cutter, and he was asking something about. It says this is made in Englewood, Colorado. Yep, it's even got it right on there as well. It's Jerry's Stripper. Well, be careful with that name. I wish it had a little bit bigger piece there because my bench is bigger, but all I need to do is mount it on a board and then clamp that board to the countertop there, and then I can use that to hold it. I've only stripped a few pieces on there, and I held it with one hand and pulled with the other hand there. This last week's just been last 2 weeks has just been really busy. Not this week we're in now, but the previous week was trying to get those panels done. I spent a lot of time on that, and I do appreciate Montana Leather sent me the leather for free, but it took a lot of effort to put out that comparison video, and I've kind of gotten started on the contact adhesive one, at least in figuring out, I guess, some ways for me to feel comfortable in trying to test it, because the last thing I want to do is to tip the scales one way or the other. So I want to try to make it as fair a comparison as possible. And I ordered another couple of these containers here so that I can have them on the bench here, and I want to use them not only in my adhesion test, but just use through them as well. In other words, put it in there, use it, find out does it get thick faster or slower than the weldwood does. I've been kind of slow going through this. This has only been in here for almost 2 months. And I've never added any solvent to any of them. As a coatings guy in my real life before I retired, using the correct thinner for whatever the product is was always important to me, and I just haven't wanted to go buy the weldwood adhesive. There's only a few ounces in here, and I found that when it's thick, it still works fine for me. And if I had a large number of things coming up, what I have done is I've gone ahead and filled it up here, which then helps to renew what's in there. The thing is you end up kind of double concentrating that, and if you don't use that up quick, then it's thicker when you get to the bottom again, thicker than it was. So I typically use it all the way up before I start another one there. But I've ordered that so that I could have it not only for my test, but then over the next couple of months, utilize each one, interchanged as far as from one project to the next to see, what I really think of it, because I want to use what makes sense to use. The Weldwood I like because I can get it at a hardware store, just about any hardware store in the U.S., as long as they don't have VOC issues anyway. I know in California they've got a lower VOC or a water-based, and most of those water-based ones, people think there's no VOCs in those, but most of them still have VOCs. They're just much reduced. But anyway, that's what I like about that. I've got the Masters and Barge, I think, are the two that I have over there. So we'll get those all out, and like I said, I've got some ideas on how to test that, so it'll be fine. Someone's asking about thread, so you buy from Japan. Dunmore? I'll have to look at that and see. I guess I do like to get suggestions from viewers on different items to use and to utilize. But for me, once I find something that works, I have a hard time just like changing, just for the sake of seeing if there's something out there that will do as good when I'm happy with this. But there have been times when I made that change and realized quickly, like, oh, there is a difference there. And the big one was when I bought my edge tools. The Tandy ones I had were just, it was probably the most frustrating thing. You go through the process to make the belt, you get down to the edge work, and if it doesn't cut nicely, then it's it can be real frustrating, because you feel like, or at least I do, not now, but early on when I'm making a belt, you get to the next step, and in my mind, like, all right, let's try not to screw up everything I've done to this point. So when you find tools and supplies that work, I like to stick with that. This is, I know some people don't like Resline. That's Resline on there. The blue, the pre-dyed leather blue from, really, to me, you get rub off from any of them, but the pre-dyed leather, if I've gotten it wet and rubbed a rag across it, I do pick up color, but I think you probably would with the Pro Dye as well. But my point of that is I like the Resline because I feel comfortable that it's going to seal it about the best of anything I've used, and the tan coat just didn't really accomplish that for me. You get hot and sweaty, then you end up getting a stain out of it there. Well, I feel like just killing time here. I don't want to do that and waste your time. Jonas, have a great weekend. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the walk with the dog there. I hope your health is doing well there for you. That's a good point. I didn't think about that, because I do see Bo the Maker talked about lanyards, and I see woven lanyards pretty often. See, one more reason why it's great to have this input. When I've looked at buying like lace, kangaroo lace can get, I think, pretty expensive to weave into a lanyard. But if I can cut my own, then maybe that's something that I can play with there. I do see a lot of people. It seems like they're and people specialize in different things. But I see people that on Facebook post a bunch of lanyards that they make, and some of them are just really beautiful. That could be kind of a fun thing. Yeah, give me a thumbs up on the video. Appreciate that. Thanks, Sherry. But that would be kind of interesting to do, because I could strip that, and then I could dye it in multiple colors and then weave that together. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And I had, when was that? Was that Wednesday? My days are running together here, but I had someone asking me to provide more information on my, I called it a strap cutter, and said that's a draw knife, not a strap cutter. I get it. It's more of a, but I'm cutting straps with it, so I'm just a hick from Indiana. So to me, that makes it a strap cutter. But I've been happy with this. I've cut up, I guess, 3 hides with it so far, and I'm still actually on the original blade that I started with. These seem a little bit stouter of a blade than the replacement blades on the wooden strap cutter is. But we'll see. I'm curious. It's got to have a spring in there, so hopefully that's a heavy-duty spring. You know, when you get moving parts, that is one of my concerns about the fact of it, you know, not working because of a moving part. But is anybody else out there using one of these Nat tool cutters here? And someone pointed out that you can use a utility blade. I haven't tried that, but the utility blade would stick up more. And Milo was saying earlier on there, I don't know if Milo's still there or not, but he's a safety guy like I am there. But my biggest concern about having a draw knife on the tabletop is I get scattered. I set it here and I pick it up, I move it around, and I'm really afraid of cutting myself on there. And you could still do that here, but there's not nearly as much as exposed there. Milo, about Neat's foot. You know, maybe you guys can have some conversation in there. Years ago, I bought, because I was just doing boots and stuff, my own work boots, not making boots. Not there, John. John keeps asking me if I'm going to make boots. But I bought the Neat's foot, and it is compound. And I know there's some people that say they don't like that, and I haven't really utilized that very often. I don't, my belts, I don't do a whole lot of oiling on the belts unless it's old and, you know, and dried out leather. For the most part, I typically don't oil my belts. Anyway, so maybe you guys have some opinion on that. And I know that Don Gonzalez, I like to watch his videos. I watch his you know, Monday morning saddle briefing, which most of the time isn't on Monday. I'm not poking fun. I'm just saying it's usually not on Monday. And for years, he says all he's ever used is olive oil. And I've always been afraid that it would go rancid. But I think once it soaks into the leather, it's less likely to do that. The areas where it goes rancid is when it's, you know, in a liquid form, not in something. Then you see people say it attracts rats. Probably we need to do more to keep from having rats around, I guess. I suppose if you've got your saddles in a tack room, then that's a bigger concern. But I don't make saddles. And I think everything I've got is going to hang in someone's closet. And if they got rats in the closet, the last thing they're probably worried about is that belt. But I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on that. The Phoebing's, like I said, Neat's foot compound as opposed to Neat's foot. I did receive a couple of other oils over here that I'll do a video on when we get a little further down the road here. And I want to see how they compare to each other. But to me, experience out there is... you know, the important part is the experience. So like Dean, I think we were talking one time and, you know, he's been doing leather work about as long as I've been alive, I think. He's getting there. But anyway, so I don't have a whole lot of opinion on that. I do like the Phoebing's line. I use their antique paste. I buy it in the quart. When I'm buying items like the dye and the sealers and such, I usually buy it in the bigger container because it's, especially when I look at the cost, because, you know, I'm going to utilize it at some point and it pays for itself. Like the antique paste, I think the quart was half the price of 4-ounce tubs multiplied out. And yeah, I don't know how long it'll take me to utilize it. I bought the neutral, dark brown, I'm sorry, antique brown, I think it's called, black, and a mahogany. And the mahogany, I'm like, on the color. I need to utilize it with some other colors as antiquing, but I did it on some raw, and it was pretty rose-colored. I didn't like the color of that so much, but I'll try it on maybe golden brown or something such as that. And I did another belt just this last week with the turquoise made from the natural, and I had intended to get some acrylic paint to test it that way. I did it with the Phoebe's Pro Dye mixed in it, and that works pretty well for me there. It tends to thin it out, as you would expect. You're adding a liquid to that paste, and I like the thicker paste better, and I'm thinking that more viscous paint would probably work better for that. And I've asked before, I don't know if anybody's had any experience on there. See, Dean, I would not use olive oil. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, early on, I used olive oil on a couple of leather projects. I haven't had any negative feedback on it. They were just raw veg tan. The one was made into a 6-foot dog leash, and that was my first experience of saddle stitching a very large project. It was kind of silly. I actually did that 6 foot, and it had 2 bend backs on, for the handle and here. So the strap was probably 7.5 foot, and I used, believe it or not, 1 piece of thread all the way around that whole thing. When I started off, I don't know how many times you'd have to pull the thread through after you got the needle through before you get to the spot where you can pull it tight and then do that again. I did it leapfrog style. I think I spent 2 days saddle stitching that, and I should have done 1 for each side and worked down. And I do see people a lot of times say that they prefer to just use a double arm length of thread, and that would be a little bit quicker, but I just like the look of it, and it doesn't bother me when I'm working at the pony attached to the workbench. I kind of, as I'm pulling, I rock back, and that helps me to not have to pull multiple times through it. I see silver stacks waving. So anyway, I don't know if anybody's got an opinion on there, but yeah, Dean, you and I talked about that. You put some olive oil in a plastic tub and then let it sit for a week, because there's times when like this oil container here, I've been using the same tub now for like 2.5 years, the actual same tub. And the oil's in there, I just add to it as I go. So that's the Neat's Foot oil compound. And I'm sure that the olive oil would have smelled by then. And I've used this same sheepskin applicator here for better part of a year now. But I've got one of those for the oil, one for the tan coat, and one for Resling. And it works really well for me there. And I've finished the, I think I had the handle finished at the last live stream, but the handle's finished. That video, I didn't want to put it out right away because I think the majority of the people that are watching my channel are here for the leather work. So I think at the end of the month, I've got this one coming out. I haven't started the sheath for that yet. I'm somewhat tempted to use one of those snapping turtle tails on a sheath for that knife. I keep going back yes and no on that. I think it needs to be black, and I don't have a black tail that's that big. I guess I could order one up. That's for sure. All right, let's get last questions here. I'm going to wrap this up. I do appreciate everybody there. If you could give me a thumbs up, that helps my views a bunch. And the same thing with videos. If you're watching my videos, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment, even if it's just like, hey. The comments on my videos help a bunch. And I'm assuming that I've got, it looks like 24 people watching. If that's the case, these are probably 24 of my bigger viewers here that are with me all the time. And I do appreciate that. I'll wait a moment here, see if we got anything else. But yeah, lanyards. I guess I could start doing lanyards. I do kind of like the handwork of braiding, and that'd be like one more thing to work on, wouldn't it? The nice thing about that is that's something that I'm assuming I could take, with me when I travel some, and keep my hands busy, because we HR manager and myself, we do like to travel some. And that's one thing I miss. We were out of the shop last fall on a trip for our anniversary, and between that and the trip to Pendleton and other stuff, I went like a month without being in the shop, and I had withdrawal symptoms. I was looking at belts and bags everywhere we went. Dean, I appreciate you you being here. Specifically, you helped drive the comments today. Lots of good feedback there. Milo, Bo the Maker. I really do appreciate that. You give me a lot of encouragement there. I see you ask if I thin the Resolene with water. I do not. I use it straight out of the container, and part of that probably comes from my coatings background. I worked for Sherwin-Williams for about 30 years, and most of the things we sold were designed to be used out of the container, and I figure same with the Resolene, that's the way it's designed to be used. I've never used an airbrush. I put it on with a sponge, and I used to laugh at people, in the paint world. They're like, oh, using an airless sprayer to put paint on a wall, it's not as good as when you use a brush and you work it into the surface. Well, that paint, if the previous coat's doing his job, you're not working paint into the surface. But I do feel, though, that on something that's absorbent like this leather is, that when I'm working that, I believe I'm working it into the surface some there. I considered thinning it down with some water to see. The annoying thing is when I'm going over a textured surface like this tooling, it causes it to want to foam up, and I hate when it foams up. And if adding water to it would cut down on that, then I would be more apt to do it. If I thought it made it penetrate better, I'd be more apt to do it. But it seems like I get good penetration. I occasionally see pictures on Facebook where someone's showing a picture and they're peeling it off, and they're like, the Resolene I put on is peeling off. My opinion is, well, one, I don't think they put that on, like I do with a sponge. I think they're spraying it on. And my guess is they've got an antique finish, or they built up a lot of dye on there and created a film to where when it's sticking on there, when it's sticking to what's on top of the surface instead of the leather itself, which I think is more indicative of using a sprayer to apply it. Not saying you shouldn't use a sprayer. Don't get me wrong there. If you varnish it and clean it, I think putting it on with a sprayer is fine. But then that's one more thing floating around in here. And if I get overspray on the HR manager's car, then I'm probably going to have bigger problems than worried about how much dye or clear finish I use. And I dip dye almost everything. I'm trying to read here. I dip dye almost everything that I dye as well. I don't get streakiness on my belts when I apply it with a sponge. And maybe you're saying that adding the water helps. I suppose maybe it makes it thinner and it gets into the leather better. But I work the belt. The way I do it is I work the belt, the front of it here, and I will do a pretty quick order right down through the whole face of it, so I don't get any stop-start marks on there. And I apply it evenly there, and then I come back and I make sure I get it worked into the, if I'm doing like white stitching here, I create the holes, and then I put the Resolene to get it in the holes, help seal that. But I get it on everything. I get the edges, I flip it over, I do the back, I do the edges, I come back, I make sure that the front's wiped down, I hit the edge again. If you hear me there, I hit the edge every time I get an opportunity, because you get more Resolene on the first coat absorbed in the edge than anywhere else, because it's more absorbent there. And then I hang it, I let it dry. I come back typically with some 320, 400, whatever, sandpaper. I scuff this edge, because sometimes you get a little fuzz on there. And then I make sure everything looks good before I come back and I put another coat on there. And I'm horrible about following instructions at times. I know the HR managers really. But on recoat times on here, a lot of times I'll do that, and then an hour later I come back, put another coat on there, and then I let it dry. This one here was put on yesterday at about 6 o'clock is when I put the last coat on these. So I'm just assembling now, and I told this gentleman they'd be ready today. So I probably need to get off of here, let you guys get back to your real world as well. Noel, I do appreciate you checking in. Noel's Firewood, Noel's Garden Tractors and Firewood. Check out his YouTube. He's up on Prince Edward Island. He puts out a video almost every day, and on Sunday he puts out a longer one, his fireside chat. It's, I mean this with respect, Noel. It's a little bit like hanging out with Grandpa in the shop because you never know where the conversation is going to go. Most of the time it's appropriate. I'm kidding. It's always appropriate. But anyway, you might check him out there. If there's anybody else that's got a YouTube channel that's on here, say so. I'd like to recognize everybody there. And once again, I do appreciate everybody more than you know. The comments are encouraging to me. The views are encouraging. The growth's good. I'm coming up, I don't know, I was 5 short of 5,300 this morning when I looked there. So as Rick's Outdoors always says, he goes, I'm surprised there's 50 people that'll listen to me yammer on about something. Appreciate you being here. I hope you have a great weekend. Please like, share, and subscribe. But as I say, more importantly, I hope you have a great weekend. I'll let the live run here for a little bit while you guys chat with each other and say goodbye. I do appreciate it. I got to get back to making these loops. Oh, you know, Dean, if you're still there, I was going to ask you. You've talked about using the staples. Do you feel that's stronger than using the thread? Because I use the 2 pieces of thread, and when I get around here to the end, I tie the 2 together. So are you liking that because of its strength over the thread or the convenience of doing it? So I'll wait to see if he may be gone. But if not, I'll wait for his response in there. But like I said, I hope everybody has a great day. I don't usually sit that long. I like to stand, but I couldn't get the camera set the way I wanted it there. And I just melt that off with my zapper. I use 8 times the length. On such a short piece like that, you're going to have more waste. And it's frustrating when you don't have enough. Here. Hey, Chris. One of these days you got to come sit in on one of my live streams there. I appreciate you. He's bought belts for me. He's got belts. His son's got belts. His father-in-law's got belts. I've talked myself long enough here. I'll be ready for a beverage to cut the dust. I have a few belts that I don't create a sewn along the edges keeper for, but almost every one of them has it. It takes a little bit of time, but I'll bet you it doesn't take me 10 minutes or something like that. I've used some metal loops from the buckle guy. And I suppose if it came down to what's my time worth, that it's probably cheaper to buy those, even though they get a pretty high price for them. They're like $2.50 a piece. Headed to the beach. I hope you're having fun. I was thinking about you there. Enjoy the beach. As soon as I finish this one here, I'll log off. It doesn't take too long here. And as far as the stapled keeper goes, I still would, in my mind, need to sew along the edges to create that look. So the only thing I'd be saving, I think, is the amount of time here to tie this pattern on here, and I would think that, this is sandwiched between the two layers of the belt, and I'm sure there's some friction in there, but this Tiger Ritza thread is pretty stout stuff. I would think that it would hold up to quite a bit of abuse. Oh, I got myself. This is a small one. Uh-oh, see a red spot. Gotta make sure I don't leave any DNA behind. They'll know who made this belt. Come on. I wonder if anybody's used those. They make the forms to wet form the leather loop around and make kind of a square loop. I don't do that, obviously. There we go. I appreciate everybody. I hope you have a great day, and I hope it's an awesome week for you.